when Texas opened back up that everybody was going to die? Didn't they say that?
Yep.
Didn't they say that they were foolish to open back up and to stop going maskless, and that there was going to be such a death surge and the death toll was going to rise and all this other stuff? Didn't they say that? Didn't
Right.
they? Didn't they say that if they opened up the country again, that this would mess up people and everybody would be laid out left and right? Didn't they say that?
Yep.
I mean, but as I recall, I don't think Texas has been messed up. I mean, I think Texas has been fine. I think also when it comes to Florida, has Florida been fine? I think so. So my thing now is that they now they know that they can use a disaster or the threat of a disaster to get control. And one of the reasons of why I'm so down, as we're on live with the post show for just a brief moment over on YouTube, one of the reasons of why I'm really down and I really want to do a thing where I talk about the GOP is because they I don't think that they did a good enough job of defending election integrity during the scamdemic. All the stuff that they did, the mail-in ballots and all the other stuff which violated the state's constitutions, that's all stuff that they could have nipped in the bud when it was happening. But they stood by and they let it happen. They let it happen. They didn't file any injunctions or anything like that until it was way too late. They didn't fight to actually have them go back and rewrite the law. They didn't do any of that stuff. It's almost as if, and maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, it's almost as if the GOP secretly wished and were happy and glad to get Trump out of office. Does it seem that way to you? I mean, am I just making this up? Or does it seem that way to
No.
you? And maybe they wanted him out of office because if we they'll probably get somebody else who we want back in later on because we don't like him either and we just want to get rid of them. So we're okay with them harvesting ballots and we don't care about them having to actually sign the ballots. We don't care about them having to actually make sure that they're actually legitimate ballots. We just want this election to be over with. So we're going to let it go. I mean,
You know
am I
what?
wrong for thinking that?
I'm so fed up with rhinos. I don't know what to do. Right? I listen to these people, and I'm like, y'all need to get out of office. All of you, they need to find out who is in with the CCP and Republican, Democrat, and they need to get rid of them. All of these people, you know.
Huh?
But
They
you know
need
what? You know what people are saying? They're saying that 2022 is just going to be like a landslide if the Democrats don't cheat, because people is just like fed up. They just like totally. They see what this man is doing. This man, this ain't nothing but Barack Obama running running the country from his basement.
But do you think people are actually fed up though? Because what people have been taught that, because they like Jim Crow Joe, because Jim Crow Joe doesn't tweet stuff that they don't like, or because they've been taught to like Joe, they think a lot of people don't even know the policies that Joe Biden has tried to put into place. They're not worried about them jamming the infrastructure bill in. They're not worried about them jamming in the uh the protections acts and all that other good stuff. They're not worried about that type of stuff because they don't see it. They don't care because they don't hear the negative coverage anymore. They don't what the media doesn't actually have to cover what Joe Biden actually does. They're just happy that they don't have to cover what Trump does. And they still end up doing it anyway because they lost ratings.
And you
So,
know it's costing them. You know at the same time it's costing them.
yep. Yep. So this
They
is this
still. I mean, it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my. And like I said, I just can't. I keep going back to why are people listening to this foolishness?
I
Especially why are Christians when they know? Uh, Sean Hannity had me cracking up when he was talking about Brian Stelter and his book only sold like 1,000 copies or something. And I look at Brian Stelter and I say, who listens to this midget? What is?
Well,
What
you know what
is
though? The left mainstream media, they always want to applaud all these people for doing this stuff, but yet what they don't tell you is that, they purposely put forth their agenda. And for the most part, because most people are susceptible to propaganda, it usually works because people don't usually go out and do their own research. They don't actually go and research the information or go back to listen to speeches in context. When
that's
they're
a big
taught to
problem.
hate somebody, then they're taught to hate them. And then that's how you know that somebody is susceptible to the media because you can hear them come out with when they say a phrase that you've heard 1,500 times.
Yeah, and all of them repeat the same thing on
All of them
different
repeat the
channels.
same thing, and it's always a falsehood. It's always something that somebody said that's not even true. And then when you point out the fact that it's not true and you prove that it's not true, the fact that they still won't receive it, or they go back to, and this is what usually they say whenever you prove them wrong. They say, "Well, I don't really care." So you don't care that you're wrong? You don't care that you've been listening to a lie? You
They
don't
have
care
been
that what you've
taught
been basing what you've been doing on isn't true? And
they have
so
been
that
taught
might
to
mean
hate
that
a
other stuff
man,
is true too?
right? They have been taught to hate a man so much that it's like it's blinding to them. It really is. And that's what I say. I say to myself, how is it that so many people that say that they're Christians were susceptible to this? This is
You know,
nothing but a trick.
because I don't think that they're tapped into the frequency of the Holy Spirit. And
Now
my
you're right. We now see that's a subject we need to stay on for a while right there. When we get we need to when we go back on, we need to talk about that some more because you got a lot of people that are Baptists don't even believe in in baptism of the Holy Spirit or none of that. But we need to talk about that's something that we
Well,
really need to talk about.
yeah, and since you have the people who don't believe in the Holy Spirit and the frequency of the Holy Spirit, they're susceptible to the frequency of propaganda and something else. And so my thing now, even with all of the stuff that has been happening, I actually heard Trump. I think I heard Trump say in a soundbite that this can't be allowed to continue to 2022.
No, he did say that. He
Like
did say that.
it just can't be. And that's the
No,
years that
can you imagine what would happen if it did?
you
All the
know
stuff
what?
just
Yeah, this is why I'm praying. I mean, I'm praying hard, and I believe that this has to happen. There has to be there has to be a real, and I'm going to put this in quotation so that way, uh, they can't come and say, "Oh, you said this on your stream." I have to believe that election integrity will be something that will be forcefully investigated and brought to the light in the weeks to come. Now,
all
the
right.
question that
Keep
I have is,
keep talking, I'll be back.
I guess the question is when there is election integrity and something happens and you don't know what happened, I guess the question then would be is what do you do if you find out that somehow the integrity of a election actually was influenced and the result was different from what it was? That's a great question. That's just a question that I'm asking. I don't need to say that anybody cheated. That's just a question that I'm legitimately asking for the constitutional scholars. I don't think that that's ever happened before where you go back and you look at and you investigate a past election. Let's say the election of 1877. Let's say they go back, let's say they would have went back and found out in 1879 that in fact the winner wasn't who they declared to be the winner, it was somebody else. What would they actually do? I mean, that's just a question that I have on my mind, and I would love to see them addressed because I don't think that the GOP did a good enough job of defending what a lot of people would call election integrity. I just don't think that they did. I don't believe that they did. And I think that has the ability to maybe discourage a lot of potential voters who are supposed to come out in 2022 for the midterms. I think that has the potential to discourage a lot of potential voters to come out because they're going to say, well, why should I come out if I don't know if what I'm voting for is actually going to be a fair, honest election? And I think that they really need to address these problems with their constituents instead of sweeping them back under the rug the way that everybody wants to do. I think that's a very fair question because if it was the other way around, if you were in a city that leans one way all the time, and you know that it leans one way all the time, but all of a sudden, you know that something happened where maybe the results look very suspicious. I would think that just because you love the fact that you can vote for your representatives, I would think that you would want to know that the elections that you're voting for, that who you actually voted for, is who actually gets put into the seat that you're voting for. That's what I would think anyway. So that's my only concern. That's my question. Those are my thoughts. So this has been, you know what? Uh, as you can see, this is the post show. So I'm just wrapping it up what we did on Uncle Tom's Extravaganza over on Facebook. If you want to join us on Facebook, please do. But this is a post show edition where we talked about a lot. We talked about Bill Cosby. We talked about the Constitution. We talked about the founding of the country. We talked about why Christians are seemingly uh, susceptible to this propaganda. And we're going to talk more in the weeks to come on Uncle Tom's Extravaganza. And I want to thank you for joining us on this edition of Uncle Tom's Extravaganza. If you didn't see the show, please go on Facebook and look up the show in the archives. It should be up there. I think this show might be uploaded to YouTube. Uh, this is one of our longer ones, but I think it's one of the better ones. And I really want people to watch it and to really get a good view on what it is that we've been talking about. So this post show edition is pretty much over. And those were my final thoughts on election integrity. I don't think that my co-host who was in and out, and because like I said, it's the post show, heard any of that. But I'm signing out
I
now,
heard it.
and I want to make sure that everybody goes on and they catch that stream if they did not catch it. So until next week, everybody, we are signing.